Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Software Plaza podcast. I'm Twain Taylor, editor at Software Plaza, and I love talking each week to different people from startups doing different roles. There's CTOs that join, there's sales heads that join, there's product folk that join, sometimes the co-founders. And today we have with us someone who's from the marketing side of things, going to be sharing with us. We're going to be talking about security, uh, a little more specifically, cloud security. And to get even more specific than that, we're going to be talking about CNAPP. Today, I'm going to be talking to Suite Security. They're into, like I mentioned, solutions related to cloud security and specifically CNAPP. And I have with me Sarah Elkaim, who is the head of product marketing at Suite Security. And she's here to tell us all about their approach to CNAPPs. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Really excited to get started. Sarah, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Okay. I'd love to get started with just getting to know a bit about you and just your journey so far up to your role at Suite Security.
Yeah, sure. I started working at Suite about a year and a half ago now. So it's been a really fun journey so far. I've been working in the cloud space for about 10 years now. It's been a
Right.
really fun journey and the way life has kind of taken me through all of these roles. I started off in more of a technical position doing technical writing and made my way to marketing
Yeah.
as I found my passion in doing more content creation and making videos and doing podcasts such as these. So yeah, it's been a really nice
Mhm.
experience so far.
Mhm. All right, all right, neat. So coming to Suite, right? I was wondering if you have anything to share where there was a particular moment that after you joined Suite, you were like, or even before, where when you were considering Suite, that you felt like, you kind of had an aha moment, like, that, okay, this is really cool. I didn't know this about Suite. Is there anything at all, any moment that you have that you could share where, it kind of opened your eyes for the first time to what Suite is about and why, uh, what made it so interesting to you?
Yeah, sure. So I think from the perspective of the way that Suite has been taking its technology and implementing it in its solutions. So that's really what attracted me to the company. And when I look at the CNAPP market, there's so many vendors in this space, and a lot of them are agentless CNAPP solutions. And Suite has really taken the sensor approach to give the maximum level of visibility and runtime protection. And I know that runtime is all the hype now, and rightfully so, with the introduction of eBPF and a lot of these different methodologies that make it much easier to do cloud security without performance impact or penalties on the servers. It just made me realize that like they're going in the right direction. We see that the industry is going in this way and is moving towards runtime. And Suite has kind of been at the forefront of that from the beginning. So that was really interesting for me to kind of see like, okay, this company is doing way more than just posture management. They're taking things to the next level, and being able to really detect real-time activity that's happening in these cloud environments and being able to detect and respond to any malicious or suspicious activity that is happening in real time.
All right, really interesting. That was quite a detailed response, and I think there's a lot we'll get into in just a few minutes. You
Yeah.
mentioned things like runtime, and CNAPP, and a lot of these things, these terms that we'll get into in just a bit. I wanted to start with just more broadly talking about cloud security and how it's been changing. And if you could talk to us about what you're seeing in terms of how cloud security is changing. What are some of the top things on people's minds today as you speak to them about security? What are the concerns? What are the challenges? Tell us some of those pain points.
Yeah, sure. So the way that I'll kind of break it down, because this is such an important topic and question, really, there's in my view, there's really two main challenges that prospects have or customers have in this sorry, that cloud organizations have. And the first challenge is really knowing what cloud security strategy works best for them. And, there's so many vendors in this space. There's so many approaches that can be done. There's too many acronyms even. We have CNAPP, which we talked about. You have CSPM, CWPP, EDR, CDR. There's so many different acronyms, and it's kind of hard to know what I need, what tools am I looking for, and what is the best way for me to secure my environment with all of these different approaches and methodologies that's available. And then, so that's a challenge in itself. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Mhm.
What do I need?
Yeah,
And then the
yeah.
second part of that challenge is, okay, once you figure out sort of what you're looking for, and you start off with, for example, a CSPM solution, like a posture management solution, and then you realize, okay, I need something a little bit more robust. So I'm going to add identity security on that, and I'll add API security on that. And now you're kind of building your security stack in an ad hoc way, and all of these
Mhm.
platforms create tool sprawl. They all cost money. It's really, really challenging to keep track of all the data that's going through all of these. And it actually leads to newer challenges that come, right? Like alert fatigue, or
Yeah.
prioritization challenges, not knowing what's crucial and what's not, what to work on. It kind of results in you needing to work hard to use your tools instead of the tools working for you. It kind of ends up being more
Mm.
challenging to start with. And then there's obviously the issue of lack of coverage, right? I mean, most modern cloud environments are extremely dynamic. They're using microservices, they're based on Linux and Windows, sometimes even together. And it's hard to see everything in one place and get to the bottom line of like, am I breached? What are my risks? Like, what's happening right now? It's actually
Yeah.
quite challenging to answer even some of those basic questions that these tools were created to help support and answer.
Mhm. Wow. Some really interesting points you made there. The one that I wanted to follow up on is just you mentioning the different acronyms we have, thanks to
Yeah.
Gartner and the other analysts, CSPM,
Exactly.
CIEM, CNAPP. So many of them, right? Tell us a bit about, you mentioned one of the top challenges is just figuring out which of these should be your strategy. Talk to us a bit more about that. How does someone wade through these? How do they process all of these? And also, if you could point to why you think CNAPP stands out amongst these, and in what way it's different, that'd be a great follow-up for us from what you just mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll actually start with the second question because it kind of leads to the answer of the
Okay,
first.
all right. Mm-hmm.
So, like we said, CNAPP stands for Cloud Native Application Protection Platform. And actually,
Mm-hmm.
what this platform does is consolidate all those different types of tools that we just talked about, like posture
Yeah.
management or workload protection or identity security, and it puts them all under one umbrella and eliminates the first challenge that we discussed of like, what do I actually need? What should be inside of my security stack, and kind of consolidates everything into one place, which makes it easier
Mm-hmm.
to correlate data across all of those different tooling, and it makes it easier for different teams to use one specific tool. So now, your cloud security teams can potentially leverage the same tool as your incident response teams, or even some of your AppSec guys can be leveraging that. And it kind of just breaks down silos that exist within the security department, and then also from data, like making sure everything is in one place. And when we're looking at the way that CNAPP was created, and you were asking, what makes CNAPP so special and so different in this way, and it actually is a little bit beyond more than just a consolidation. And when we look at the history of cloud security, and we see how it started, and how CNAPPs really came to be, it kind of started off with, that posture management, the CSPM, and then that workload protection. So knowing how to build that cloud environment, like using best practices, and then also being able to look at real-time activity that's happening on the workload. And it was kind of built using like this EDR methodology of like being able to detect some of these threats that you see in the environment. And it's kind of like EDR was lifted and shifted for the cloud. But the challenge there was that it was actually quite complex to install, and it required an agent in order to actually use some of that technology. And at the time, right, when CNAPP first came out around 2020 or so, a lot of companies were still early on in their cloud journey, and they weren't ready to deploy such a heavy instrument in their environment. And that's kind of where like this agentless CNAPP came about, and it became such a popular phenomenon because it provided that visibility and that deeper, robust coverage than just the posture management, like we talked about, but in a much easier way, right? It's easier to implement, it's easier to utilize. It's sort of like, okay, I can install my agentless CNAPP, and in 24 hours, I'm able to see inside my environment, sometimes even less if the onboarding process is quite quick. So yeah, so I would say that that's actually one of the greater benefits of CNAPP and how it's actually evolved in that way. The only downside of that agentless CNAPP approach was the lack of real-time activity, right? The agentless concept meant that there was snapshots or scanning of the environment, and it usually happened every 8, 10, 12, 16 hours or so. So anything that happened in between those snapshots wasn't covered. And it wasn't until 2023 or so where eBPF really became such a popular phenomenon, and a lot of CNAPP solutions started implementing eBPF in order to get more robust visibility and visibility into things that are happening in real time. So when we say like why CNAPPs, why are they so important? I'm talking about the CNAPPs of today, the ones that are using eBPF to get that real robust visibility that's super deep and lets you see everything in the cloud environment without relying on snapshots. It's 24/7 real-time activity that's being monitored, and it gives you the best of both worlds of, okay, this is all the best practices for building my environment in the right way and handling misconfigurations and such, while also being able to detect real-time threats and real-time activity that's malicious that's happening in the environment.
All right, really interesting about agentless and agentic there.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I just wanted to ask about, you mentioned tools sprawl, you mentioned alert fatigue, and the overload that comes because of just the
Yeah,
different options
it's hard.
available. And so how do people think of this? Do they think of like having different solutions, best of breed, bringing it together and somehow integrating these solutions? And you mentioned CNAPP integrates them. So does that mean if someone has a CNAPP, they don't need to obsess so much about how to integrate these different other tools and solutions, but that the CNAPP would take care of that? So in a way, CNAPP is kind of your centralized, view of your security system. Could you talk a bit about that, just given the complexity and just the
Yeah.
spread of the tools and solutions? Is CNAPP the answer to centralization, or is that something still you need to own and a CNAPP can help you with it? How do you think through that?
So I think that CNAPPs are evolving so much, and maybe we'll get to a point in the future with runtime where it will be all encompassing. But at the moment, every single CNAPP vendor on the market is taking a different approach. So some of them are really great at providing that visibility. Some of them are really great at providing context, and as a result, reduce the alert fatigue. And so it really requires the organization to be diligent and do a lot of research on what are the challenges that I'm facing in my organization, and what CNAPP is the strongest in terms of fixing those issues that I'm having. So is it prioritization? Is it visibility? Is it the ability to detect that I'm being hacked and kick out that hacker before I have any damage? Is it all of the above, So I think that CNAPPs are on the road to get there. But on the other hand, I'm not sure that I'm the biggest believer in, a one-stop shop for everything. Like for the CNAPP to be this big umbrella and fix all of your problems. I don't think any organization will be number
Mhm.
one at everything, but
Mhm.
that's, I think, the power of integrations, like and not necessarily to integrate with multiple CNAPPs, but if you have one CNAPP that kind of like acts as like your mission control, and then you work with other vendors that are the best in what they're doing, and together you'll be able to build that security stack where you're like, okay, I know that the CNAPP is covering ABC and everything else that I need is being covered as well. We kind of built a blueprint at Suite actually where it's like if you partner a really great ASPM solution, like an application protection solution with some sort of shift right runtime CNAPP, and then partner those two tools with a SIM or a SOAR, you really have all of the pieces of the puzzle that you need to secure the entire framework of your organization and the entire cloud environment. So I don't think it's a one-stop shop thing. I really do think you kind of
Mhm.
need to build pieces together and make sure that when you're buying a new tool, that new tool integrates with some of the existing solutions that you're using that you know solves your problems, that you know you love using, that your team loves using, and that's bringing you value at the end of the day.
All right, so I wanted to ask you about what would be some of the one of the biggest pain points that you see that teams face when they try to prioritize and fix vulnerabilities in cloud native environments.
Yeah, definitely. Vulnerabilities is a huge challenge. There's way too many of them. It's hard to know what needs to be patched versus what can be put aside for later and what can be handled at a different time without stress, right? And agentless CNAPPs were great because they showcased all the vulnerabilities in your environment. They essentially gave you a discovery of all the vulnerabilities that you have, but they couldn't tell you which vulnerable packages, for example, are actually loaded into the application's memory or are being used at runtime and therefore are reachable by an attacker. And runtime provides an edge here because it actually gives you the vulnerability discovery just like an agentless CNAPP would do. But it also helps you prioritize what to do based on runtime signals that discover what's actually being used in the application in your production environment. So we're talking about a 90% reduction in vulnerabilities that needs to be handled with the introduction of runtime insights being put in here. And so it's not that the runtime just helps you detect and respond to threats. It actually gives you so much context to help you understand, not just the exact executed package, but also what workloads with executed vulnerabilities are exposed with connections from the internet. And what is the impact of those exposed connections to your specific environments? And in a very real way, this runtime lets you analyze a vulnerability, not in theory, but in reality. This is actually what's happening right now. And these are the vulnerabilities that are loaded into your application's memory and can be leveraged by an attacker to gain initial access into your environment and access your crown jewels, which is obviously the scary part.
All right, all right. Yeah, definitely connecting the dots and not just telling you what happened, but even why it matters to you.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. The next key phrase that key term that I'd like to get into is something you mentioned at the start, which is runtime. And
Yeah.
for you, it was a given when you were talking about it. You were saying, that everyone knows that runtime is the future, or something on those lines is what you had mentioned. But I'd like for you to just talk a bit more about that. Just why runtime is really important, uh, what runtime is not, what it does not cover, because we also featured like other solutions that do more pipeline security and
Yeah.
other kinds of security, and so of course each of them has their own uses. But obviously, you have a very deep and an in-depth view of what runtime security is and why it matters. And I'd like to hear a bit more about that because there may be some who may not think the same and may think that if we shift left more and we resolve issues early on, then we don't need to focus as much on runtime security. But maybe that's not the right way to think of it. But open to just your views on why runtime is important.
Yeah, definitely. So I think I'll just start off by giving a little overview of what runtime is. And it's essentially the ability to monitor each and every workload in the cloud environment in real time and to identify threats and ongoing risks that are happening inside of that workload in real time. And
Hmm.
runtime security is based on an agent that's deployed in the workload. And as we mentioned before, until 2023 or so, an agent was a big no-no. The old agent was very challenging to deploy. It was heavy on servers and consumed a lot of resources, and it increased downtime in production. And like we said, the technology just wasn't there yet. But now with the new technology that's been introduced, specifically with eBPF, it kind of granted organizations the ability to actually see everything that's going on in their environment using a
Hmm.
non-intrusive method. So if there are organizations that are not interested in runtime, it means that they're not interested in knowing what's going on 24/7 in real time in their environment. And at Sui, we kind of jokingly call it a sensor now instead of an agent because of the bad reputation it has, when in fact, eBPF is the only way to provide the deepest and most advanced visibility into the cloud. And, and it's even easier to deploy than some of these other methodologies and tools that are being used. It kind of gave the confidence and the trust for companies to use it because it operates at the kernel level, and it's not intrusive. And up until now, agentless solutions could show you where an attacker could potentially enter your environment or where an attacker could potentially cause damage. But
Hmm.
if the attacker was actually in the environment right now, they would not be able to detect that. So
Okay.
to answer the question of like, why is it important?
Hmm.
It's to stop a breach right here, right now, to make sure that that attack does not go through, that that hacker is kicked out of that environment before he can cause any damage, before he reaches the crown jewels. And so when I kind of like summarize it, it's like this agentless CNAPPs are like the potential of what could possibly happen and how you can reduce that attack surface. And the runtime is like, this is what's actually going down in your environment. And this is what you need
Hmm.
to be paying attention to right now.
All right, all right. Got it, got it. Yeah, yeah. So I think, yeah, no matter how prepared you are, and no matter what precautions you take, you can never be 100% secure
Yeah.
once it's, and then you need something like a runtime protection tool for that.
Exactly, exactly.
Makes sense. I want to ask about getting into, the solution. We kind of talked about the challenges. We talked about, even approaches that are possible in solving these challenges. I want to talk a bit about the solution and just your approach as well at Suite. How do you look at CNAPPs? What is your approach to doing CNAPP the right way?
Yeah, sure. So sweet, like, I want to make sure that I'm answering this question
Mhm.
in the right way that kind of enhances everything we've talked about so far, specifically the
Sure.
challenge.
Mhm.
So Suite was established and was built around our unique eBPF sensors that we actually developed
Okay.
in-house. And with
Okay.
those sensors, we're actually collecting real-time signals from each and every workload that's running on the
Mhm.
environment.
All right.
And in addition to that, we're actually able to grab real-time application level activity, layer 7 activity, and together, we're taking all the data that we grab from the sensor, so from the workload and from the application layer, and we correlate it with ingested cloud logs and cloud APIs that we get from the infrastructure layer. And then based on all of that real-time metadata that we've collected from the cloud native applications, from the workloads, from the cloud infrastructure, we're creating a dynamic baseline for each and every single environment. It's kind of like we're building like the DNA, like how does the DNA look like of this specific environment? And then we pinpoint and we showcase whenever any activity deviates from that norm or deviates from the normal behavior that the cloud environment is used to doing. And with this consolidated approach, we're actually able to detect end to end, starting from initial access all the way to how the adversary moves inside the environment and reaches the crown jewels in one story, in one incident. And because we're looking at all the layers of the cloud stack, as opposed to just looking at the cloud infrastructure or just looking at the application layer. And this actually
All
provides security teams the ability to quickly understand what happened, what was the result of the attack, what to do to shut it down, what areas did the adversary move to, how did he get around, and so on.
Okay, okay, really interesting. Yeah, so looks like eBPF is definitely central to your approach.
Yes,
Uh,
definitely.
I'm definitely curious to know just how all of this works in real, and you have also, I think, a demo or a walkthrough prepared for
Yeah.
us. So wondering if we could get into that. If we could see some of the key metrics or some of the key logs that you mentioned, the key parts of the dashboard of Suite's product. Would love to get into that.
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen here. Okay, great. So this is the incidents page for Suite, and it shows all of the threats, real-time threats that are occurring in the environment live, like right now at the moment. And I've just filtered here to see all of the unified threats, which means
Okay.
um, an incident that involves where an adversary traverses through the environment and moves laterally across different aspects of the cloud stack. Just
Mm-hmm.
picking one at random here, even the first one. Right, we're able to see, okay, there's a cryptocurrency mining attempt happening on the environment. And our solution, the main goal that what we're trying to do here is not just to be able to detect that threat, but to be able to tell you in plain English, this is what happened. This is the damage that was done. This is not, a false positive. This is real attack that's happening in your environment right now. And this is the impact of the damage that was done or the impact of what it means to your environment. So starting off with our story, our proprietary, oh, sorry, what was that?
Oh no, I was saying, wow. I'm just really fascinated seeing the word story. I've never seen the word story used in a security dashboard
Yeah.
day, so it's
It's
really cool.
really, we're kind of taking all of the different security signals and putting it into a narrative. Like it really is read like a story, like a book. So, what is the
Mm,
first thing that happens, right? The attack begins with the script. This is how it started off, right? What was the initial access point? What opened the door to get that adversary in? How did he succeed in doing that? And just from this one piece right here, you have an action item. Fix that problem, fix that entry point. And then
mm,
as you read along the story, you see how the attacker moved forward and moved forward. And then I'm just going to hop over here to the top events. And these are really the smoking guns. These are the most critical things that happened in the incident. When an attacker is in your environment, he's generating so much activity. There's so many events that are happening, and you don't want to get alerted on every single one of those things. You want to know, bottom line, what did he do? What was the damage that was caused, right? And for example, I see here that the attacker attempted to delete flow logs, but he was not successful in doing so. Okay, now I'm feeling better. I'm a security analyst. I feel a little bit better about that. But what did he succeed in doing? What was the damage of that? And then here you can see the actual impact of what he did. What and the results of some of the activity that he was conducting, right? There were attempts made to manipulate the logs and the resources. The system security was compromised, and this allowed the attacker to execute malicious scripts. I'm getting the bottom line here. And now, as a security professional, I know what I need to do next. I understand exactly what the hell happened? And I can work with the right team member to actually resolve this incident. And some of the feedback that we've been getting from our customers, and as we've been doing a lot of research on how impactful our story, incident impact, and top events are, we've noticed that there's been a 90% reduction in mean time to resolve, or MTTR, of incidents or threats happening in the environment. So generally, our customers would take from 3 hours to 10 days prior to using Suite to even detect the attacker in the environment in the first place and actually
yeah.
respond to it, open a war room. Now everyone's involved, to actually being able to handle it in 5 to 10 minutes and saying, okay, this is
Mm,
what happened. Let's go to leadership. Let's see how we need to move forward from here. Whose identity was compromised? What happened? And let's fix this problem.
yeah, it makes sense. The tool kind of does the heavy lifting for you. You don't need to go and look at a thousand
Exactly.
reports and talk to different teams and different people to figure out what's happening. It's all laid out for you, and it's
Exactly.
really in order and in context. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And I see also there's a visual representation below that. There's a,
Yes. So this is a graph that actually showcases all the things that you see here in the story, but in a visual format, just to be able to make it more clear. We know that some people like to see, some people like to read, and we're kind of providing the best of both. And they can click into any of these pieces of it and get a little bit more information on what happened. It's a
Mhm.
part of a larger incident. What was the processes that took place? What are the details of that specific action? And so on and so forth.
Yeah. I don't know if we can get into that in this demo itself, but you mentioned earlier about how CNAPP also connects and integrates with other cloud security tools like
Yeah,
CSPM and CIEM. Is there any part at all here set up in this demo that we could see one example of that kind of thing
sure.
where
Yeah.
Suite shows
So,
us from, let's say, CSPM or CIEM?
so if I go to the integrations here, oh, oops. So Suite actually integrates with a number of different providers, not just from the security perspective, but also notification systems. For example, if you do get an attack, and not everyone's on Suite 24/7, they want to be alerted about that on Slack and kind of have that momentum work faster. Different ticketing systems, and then like we spoke about. Response solutions, SIM solution integrations with Splunk, with a lot of the cloud provider solutions here, and security workflows to how to move forward. One of the bigger ones here being Torque, and then access management system to kind of bring the identities into the picture. And so these are the ones that we have now, but we're obviously constantly building new integrations and making sure that we're showcasing to the world like we can fit into your existing security stack. We know you love your tools and we want to work side by side along with them.
All right. Wow, really neat. I want to talk about other kinds of threats, like for example, with identity threats. What are some of the ways that Suite helps to detect and respond to those kind of threats as well?
Yeah, sure. So identities is actually a very interesting topic for us. And
Mhm.
when you think about it, the reason why identity attacks are on the rise and why they're so successful is because the attacker is actually using valid credentials to enter the
Mhm.
environment. So a regular detection tool is not going to be able to spot that. If I'm taking
Okay.
Joe Smith's username and password in order to enter the cloud, then the detection tool will be like, oh, it's just Joe.
Yeah.
But in reality, that legitimate credential is being compromised by an adversary. And in
Mhm.
order to detect and respond to identity-based attacks where they are using valid credentials, you need a solution that actually can be able to deviate or know when the behavior of that identity is deviated. And that's true for both
Yeah.
human identities, like we talked about Joe Smith, but also non-human identities. So any machine that's running in the environment. So it really starts with knowing all the identities that you have, both human and non-human, knowing all of the secrets that are used in the environment, and then
Mhm.
building a baseline for how those identities behave normally, and then alerting you and saying, hey, Joe is doing something a little bit weird. We don't know if it's an attack, but it's definitely indicative of one. It looks like one. This requires
Okay.
further research from your part, further investigation from your part.
Okay. Could you just dig in a little bit more into that example? Like, would it look for like policies that are being violated, or would it look for more metadata points itself, like strange IPs? Could you give us a little more detail on just how it would notice that this doesn't look normal?
Yeah, so definitely one that you mentioned, like a strange IP. Okay, I know Joe is based in the US, so why is he logging on from Europe? That automatically would cause our solution to say, something is weird. But that
Mm.
by itself might not be enough. So if
Okay.
there's two, three, four, five things that are happening that are weird, then
Yeah.
maybe Suite will send a message and say, okay, too many things are happening and it's not a
All right.
coincidence. So, for example, it can be a different IP address than what Joe is used to using. And then it
Mhm.
could go from there to say, okay, Joe is trying to spin up a new cloud resource, but he's not a part of the DevOps team. Hmm, what is he
Mhm.
doing? Now there's two things that are strange. And as it builds on top of the other, and that's why the baseline for the entire environment is needed,
Got it.
you're actually able to say, okay, there's multiple activities that are happening here, and none of them are making sense and none of them are normal behavior. Let's notify the security analyst about this and have him do more research on it.
All right, all right. Yeah, that makes sense. That's pretty cool. Is there any mechanism to automatically put in some measures to prevent an ongoing attack? Any, you know, uh, what do they call this? Automated remediation, is it? Yeah, I forget the exact term used for it, but yeah, basically automated remediation to where you kind of automatically put things in place to stop an ongoing attack. Anything of that sort built into Suite?
Mhm. Yes, definitely. So Suite gives you two options essentially, or because not everyone wants it to be automatic, right? So you
Mhm.
can terminate the malicious process. You can go
Yeah,
into the Suite system, press that terminate button, and do it manually. But it can
yeah.
also be automatic if you set up the system in that way to say, anytime something is weird, terminate
Mhm.
anytime. But it's challenging because you don't always want it to be automatic. What if you
Yeah,
are
it
a
affect
tool like
workloads.
Zoom and things are happening live, and if you terminate the process, it could disrupt production, and now
Yeah,
customers glitch and they don't really know what's happening behind the scenes. So it's
yeah.
really important to be kind of careful when you're implementing things automatically, but we know that a lot of customers need this, and so we've provided the ability to do it either manually or automatically. And then we
Mhm.
also have a lot of integrations with different workflow tools that we use that can help you isolate compromised workloads and not necessarily terminate them, but isolate them in a specific way, or
Mm,
set off an action item through a solution like Torque that can combat those issues that you're having and give the right people the notification that they need to do something about it.
mhm,
There's a few ways to do it inside of Suite itself, either
mhm.
manually or automatically, or there's ways to do it with any type of response tool that you want to utilize, and not have it be Suite. So it can be catered to the way that the organization wants to handle and address those environment incidents.
All right. Yeah, we're winding down. Last couple of questions. I want to talk a bit about some of the proprietary LLMs that you built, which help with detection. So tell us a bit about those LLMs, what they do, and why they
Yeah.
matter.
So there's really 2 points here. The first is that we understood that each and every cloud environment is different. Even if we have two customers and both of them are AWS shops, they're really operating in such a different way and they're using the cloud in really different ways. So
Hmm.
building our system to rely on static rules alone just doesn't work. It would require our customers to build a lot of custom rules to match their use case and match their cloud environments. And we do offer them the ability to build custom rules if they so choose to do so. But just building more and more and more static rules doesn't actually help any of our customers. We took the approach of using proprietary LLMs that are constantly learning the environment and creating a dynamic baseline for the environment for each and every single customer. And this allows our customers to sort of move away from these static rules and into a dynamic way of learning. And the baseline itself is also dynamic. So as the customer changes their environment, as they continue to grow and build more applications, the LLM will continuously learn and continuously make updates to the different rules that it itself is creating. And so it means less work for our customers, and it results in more accurate detections. And at the bottom line of this is that what comes out of it is almost 0% false positives, because we know exactly what should be happening in the environment and what shouldn't be, and we're eliminating everything else that's just creating a lot of noise.
Hmm.
Then,
All right.
yeah,
Interesting.
so that's really the first part of what our proprietary LLMs do, right? It kicks static rules out the door. And we're still using them, but
Mhm.
we're not relying solely on them. And then the second piece of it is the LLM's understanding of the environment itself and being able to determine how that threat looks like within that specific environment, right? A lot of CNAPPs tools these days are also using AI and ChatGPT for things like vulnerability remediation, but it's not really catered advice because they're using a generic LLM model instead of something that's built to learn the specific environment. And our LLMs, the point of them is to answer three questions right away. Is it a false positive? What happened? What's the damage? What's the impact? How severe is this risk? And again, as a result of using our LLMs, we are able to reduce MTTR to 5, 10 minutes as opposed to 3 hours to 10 days.
Wow, wow. Yeah, that's pretty fast. Um, last question around just Suite and CNAPP is, as you look ahead for the next year or so, what's on your mind in terms of what's next for CNAPP or what's next for Suite? What are some of the new innovations that are upcoming, probably on your roadmap, or things that
Yeah.
are still a bit out there that get you excited? What do you read about when you go to
Yeah.
Reddit or elsewhere? What are you tracking?
So before looking ahead, I kind of like to think back to the past. Suite has been
Mhm.
around for 2 years so far, and in that time, we've had tremendous success, especially in the US market. And we're expanding to European markets now, and we're moving quickly with some major customers in EMEA. And we've managed to secure a significant round day of funding, and we're moving quickly from there and surpassing 1 million ARR. And so I'm really proud of what Suite has done within such a short period of time. And
Mhm.
now with regard to the future, I think we're going to take this real-time approach even further and providing more thorough ways to understand, and help security analysts answer every single question they may have about their cloud environment. And this includes assessing the risk of each and every single application or all the vulnerabilities in the space and understanding the exact business logic of each application and how it works and which ones are more critical or less critical and aiding really in making really wise prioritization decisions. That way the friction between, security teams and development teams is minimized as much as possible. We're super proud of our vulnerability management solution and how we're able to cater to those use cases, and we kind of want to take that even further into the next level.
Right. All right. Wow, that was a fascinating conversation. Thanks for taking us on that tour of CNAPP and Suite and just getting us interested in what's possible when you focus on doing runtime security the right way. I thought it was quite an insightful conversation with you, Sarah. Thanks so
Hey,
much
me
for
too.
joining. But before you head out, I just wanted to ask you one last question that I ask all of our guests, which is, what would be your alternate career path if not for your job in tech?
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, so um, I mean, I've always loved cars. I know it's like two completely different things. Like I really would love to open maybe like a car museum that showcases how different cars are built. My specific my favorite era of cars is the 60s. So, being able to build a museum here in Israel and showcase how the evolution of cars are made and how vehicles really take technology, which I love already, and I work in tech, but it also pairs it so well with design and art and some of the things that are my other passions, outside of work and how those two things meet together. It's really all of my favorite things. So yeah, I
It-
think that would be a museum owner, if that makes sense.
Okay, all right. Wow, really interesting. Do you have a favorite car movie?
A favorite car movie? I don't. I
All
actually love
right.
my daughter loves the movie Cars, like the cartoon. So
Yeah,
I
that's
guess
fun.
that one since I watch it like 3 times.
Oh, just three? Okay, I thought you'd
Yeah.
watch it.
Yeah.
Did you get to catch the F1 movie, by the way?
Oh yeah, I saw that they did make an airplane version of it. I should watch it. We haven't seen it yet.
Oh, no, I mean the F1 movie, the Brad Pitt Formula One F1.
Oh, did it recently come out?
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's just in theaters right now. So you should go
Oh,
check it out. I
nice.
think you'd love it.
I should. I'll go there for
All right.
date night.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Sarah. Do come back when you release something big at Sweet and tell us about it, maybe
Of
six
course.
months, a year down the line. I'd love to have
Definitely.
you back.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of our listeners and viewers for tuning in as well. We hope you enjoyed this conversation with Sarah from Sweet Security. Go check out what they're doing some really cool stuff in runtime security and CNAPP. So if that's something that's on your mind after this conversation, definitely see what they're up to. And tune in again on the next episode. We'll be talking about something similar. See you on that one. Bye-bye.
Bye.